At the beginning of the movie, a woman gets into a car to wait for her husband, who's buying cigarettes at the supermarket. However, at the same time, she's suddenly attacked by a robber. Fortunately, her husband named Shane Daniels appears and immediately beats up the robber before the robber flees. The next day, the robber is found gruesomely dead in an alley, and the police immediately suspect Shane as seeking revenge. Shane is then prosecuted and interrogated by several police officers to confess, but Shane, who never harmed the robber, still answers no. The police continue to accuse Shane considering he's a former Special Forces soldier known for brutality, so it's highly likely Shane is the culprit. Subsequently, Shane, considered unwilling to admit his guilt, is finally sentenced to 20 years in prison, even though he never committed the crime. In short, 6 years later, Shane is again accused, as it turns out the police had wrongly accused him as the perpetrator. It's revealed that the one who killed the robber 6 years ago was actually the robber's own accomplice. Here, the judges and all law enforcement agencies immediately apologize. They even offer a compensation of $300,000. However, Shane says that money can't restore his reputation. Moreover, Shane's family is now broken because of his long imprisonment. 2 years prior, his wife had divorced him, and now she's remarried to another man. The next night, Shane is seen buying a drink at a convenience store on the outskirts of town. However, as soon as he leaves the store, he's confronted by two thugs intending to rob him. Shane asks them to leave because he's just out of jail and doesn't want trouble. However, the two thugs, underestimating Shane, end up insulting him, which triggers Shane to take action. After beating them, Shane realizes his actions were being monitored by CCTV, so he returns to the store. There, Shane asks the shopkeeper not to worry because he only wants to take the CCTV hard drive. After that, Shane leaves using the thug's car. Several hours later, it shows Shane feeling distressed at the pier near the lake. Until now, Shane still can't believe that his wife has remarried another man. The scene shifts to a young man named Sergey who is driving with a friend. It's known that Sergey is the biological son of a Russian mafia boss who lives in the neighboring city. Shortly after, their car turns into the lake dock area to take a short break. On the other side, Shane also briefly sees Sergey from a distance, but he doesn't seem to care. A few minutes later, a police car is seen escorting another car to pull over. When the police ask for the driver's identity, both of them pretend not to speak English. Then, as the police search their car's trunk, it turns out to contain a large amount of money and a woman held hostage. However, at the same time, both of them immediately attack and eliminate the police officer without hesitation. It turns out both of them are part of the Chinese mafia syndicate. On the other hand, Sergey's frightened friend tries to run away, but he ends up being eliminated by the two members of the Chinese mafia. Then, they also target Sergey, who was trying to escape using a car at that time. But unfortunately, Sergey is cornered. Fortunately, at the same time, Shane suddenly detonates his own car. Then he appears from behind and beats up the two Chinese mafia members. In this incident, one Chinese mafia member is eliminated by Shane, while the other manages to escape. After that, Shane checks their car's trunk and finds a large amount of money and a woman unconscious. Finally, Shane tells Sergey to drive only this car with him. On the way, the woman who was unconscious starts to wake up, and it turns out her name is Tia. Then, Shane asks why Tia was kidnapped by them and who is in the trunk. Tia answers that the two who kidnapped her are members of the Chinese mafia syndicate, and all the money belongs to them. Then, Shane says that Tia doesn't need to worry because she's safe now, and Shane will drop her off at the police station. Hearing that, Tia begs Shane not to drop her off because she knows that the police chief in this city is a corrupt cop who has long been in cahoots with the Chinese mafia. In short, the next morning, Shane asks Sergey to stop at a motel because he wants to rest. There, Sergey immediately thanks Shane for saving him. Sergey also gives an address on a red paper in case Shane needs help because Sergey is the son of a Russian mafia boss. Before they part ways, Shane advises Sergey to dispose of this car before Sergey goes home, and Sergey agrees. The scene shifts to the scene from last night, which is now known by the police. After assessing the situation, a police chief tries to change the scene because it turns out they are corrupt cops working with the Chinese mafia. On the other hand, this is the Chinese mafia leader known as Chen. Chen also has a partner from the military group named Colonel. Shortly after that, one of his henchmen who managed to escape last night has now returned to the headquarters. Then the henchman known as Mao immediately tells Tia about what happened and the money. Mao says that the one who kidnapped Tia and all her money is a big man and a young man. Mao doesn't know the big man, but for the young man, Mao knows that he is the son of a Russian mafia boss named Sergei. Hearing that, Chen and the colonel appear upset, but nonetheless they must obtain it immediately. Returning to the scene, switching to Shane and Tia, who are now in the motel. Here Shane immediately asks in detail about what actually happened to Tia. Then Tia explains that a few days earlier she was asked to come by the Chinese mafia with the pretext of her uncle requesting her presence. However, when she arrived with some of her colleagues were eliminated by corrupt police officers. Tia also explains that her uncle is an accountant and he has a big secret about the confiscation of illicit goods in China. That's why the mafia kidnapped her to make her uncle come and redeem Tia. Now her uncle is on his way, but her uncle cannot possibly comply because the one picking up her uncle is Chen's henchman, the mafia boss. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, it is seen that the police chief and his henchmen, who are now requested by Chen, are heading to a bar owned by the Russian mafia. While inside the bar, Shane is seen conversing with his father, who is the boss of the Russian mafia. Sergei also tells that someone named Shane saved his life last night. Shortly after, the police chief and his henchmen appear before them. The police chief asks for permission to take Sergei for interrogation, but Sergei's father immediately refuses. Then, Sergei's father asks the police chief to leave before he and all his henchmen eliminate the police officers. Sergei's father also says that his people will never fear going to prison because American prisons are heaven for them. The frightened police chief then quickly takes his henchmen away from there. At the same time, Shane and Tia were seen checking all their money because they were afraid that the money might have been equipped with GPS tracking devices. However, after checking for a while, it turned out to be true that there was indeed a GPS device installed in the money. At the same time, the Chinese mafia had apparently surrounded their motel, leading to a commotion. Fortunately, Shane, who was a former trained Special Forces soldier, managed to eliminate them. After that, Shane immediately took Tia and left, and their destination now was to visit Sergei and seek help from the Russian mafia group. Several hours later, the motel was immediately processed as a crime scene by the police. Then, the police chief, who had checked the CCTV footage, now knew that the person who brought the Chinese mafia's money was Shane, a former Special Forces soldier. Not only that, but the police chief also found a red paper with Sergei's address written on it, so he immediately understood that Shane and Tia would definitely visit Sergei's house to seek help. Then the police chief got into his car and immediately contacted Chen to inform him of everything. After that, Chen asked the colonel about the best course of action. The colonel said that they should siege the Russian mafia headquarters tonight by sending 90% of their henchmen, including corrupt police officers. The colonel was confident that this way they would surely be able to retrieve their money, including Tia. In short, Chen's henchman Mao was sent to monitor Sergei's house. Shortly afterward, he saw Shane and Tia about to enter. Then the police chief also appeared, and Mao immediately said that tonight they would attack Sergei's house and eliminate the Russian mafia members. On the other hand, Shane and Tia were seen entering Sergei's house, and they were immediately asked to go upstairs. Upon reaching the top floor, they finally met Sergei, who was with his father at the time. Sergei's father, who already knew everything, immediately thanked Shane for saving Sergei. Then Shane explained that he needed Sergei's father's help because both of them were surely targeted by the Chinese mafia. Shane also talked about the money he brought, and Sergei's father was willing to share his money. Hearing that, Sergei's father replied that he and his group would definitely protect Shane and Tia without Shane having to share the money. From now on, Sergei's father would consider Shane as family, and whatever they needed, his group would surely help. The scene shifts to several people who have just disembarked from a ship carrying weapons. It is known that these people are henchmen soldiers of the Colonel, as the Colonel is planning something to betray Chen. In the background, the Colonel and Chen are seen relaxing, accompanied by ladies. Here, Chen is very confident that his henchmen sent to attack the Russian mafia will definitely be able to retrieve his money. Actually, all these plans were intentionally exploited by the Colonel, so that most of Chen's henchmen would not be at the headquarters. Shortly afterward, the Colonel's henchman soldiers arrived and immediately killed all of Chen's henchmen at the headquarters. After taking over the headquarters and holding Chen hostage, the Colonel finally confessed that he had always wanted to overthrow Chen. The Colonel also said that he was just waiting for Chen's surviving henchmen to return with their money. And at that moment, the Colonel would also kill them. The scene shifts to Chen's henchmen and corrupt police officers, who are besieging Sergei's house, or more precisely, the headquarters of the Russian mafia. Mao, who is leading there, without hesitation, kills some Russian mafia members who are at the back. Meanwhile, corrupt police officers enter through the front door, leading to gunfire. Upstairs, Shane and Sergei's father, who saw the incident via CCTV, immediately prepared to confront them. Here, Sergei's father will fight the corrupt police officers in front, while Shane, Sergei, and Tia will go to the back. After that, it shows Sergei's father and some of his henchmen starting to attack the corrupt police officers, forcing them back. On the other side, Mao and his henchmen manage to kill more Russian mafia members at the back, but shortly afterward, Mao's henchmen are now being killed by Shane. At one point, Sergei and Tia are caught by Mao's henchmen, leading to a brawl. Unfortunately, while Sergei is fighting, Mao manages to take Tia away. Then, when Mao tries to lead Tia out, Shane ultimately manages to kill Mao quite easily. Continuing to Sergei's father, who is still in a shootout with the corrupt police officers. After a long exchange of gunfire, they finally manage to neutralize the corrupt police officers. Then, after everything is safe, Sergei's father says that this will continue before they return to attack the headquarters of the Chinese mafia and eradicate it. Hearing that, Shane and Tia certainly agree, so they decide to counterattack the headquarters of the Chinese mafia. Before leaving, Tia pleads for them to also rescue her uncle, who is now arriving at the headquarters of the Chinese mafia. Several hours later, Sergei's father, Shane, and his henchmen are seen near the headquarters of the Chinese mafia to monitor them. At the same time, Tia's uncle finally arrives there being held hostage, as we know Tia's uncle is an accountant who has important information. Then, when the uncle is about to be brought in, that's when the battle ensues. While they are busy exchanging fire, Chen secretly tries to free himself from his bonds. Then, when he gets a chance, Chen tries to kill the Colonel. But unfortunately, he is caught and immediately killed. Shortly afterward, Tia's uncle, who is now being brought into the Colonel's room by his henchmen, is shown. Meanwhile, Shane, Sergei's father, and the others also move into the headquarters and resume the gunfire with the Colonel's henchmen. Then, at one point, when Tia is off guard, she gets shot, but luckily, Shane quickly finishes off the shooter. They then ask Sergei to help tend to Tia's wound, while Shane goes upstairs to finish off the remaining enemies. Before leaving, Tia asks if she will be okay, and Shane replies that she won't die here. After that, Shane starts going upstairs and eliminates his enemies one by one. Then, when the Colonel's henchmen are neutralized, Shane enters the Colonel's room, where he is with Tia's uncle. Here the Colonel asks what Shane really wants, and Shane answers that he wants to eliminate the Colonel's group, leading to a duel. Shane, who is much bigger and stronger, eventually manages to knock out the Colonel, but Shane doesn't kill him. Then Shane takes Tia's uncle out, because he believes it's all over. However, as they walk away, the Colonel manages to rise again and intends to shoot Shane from the top of the headquarters, but suddenly, it turns out Shane had previously planted a bomb in the headquarters and will detonate it once he's out. In short, several months later, Shane asks Tia to come down because guests and the Russian mafia are already waiting. It turns out Shane and Tia are going to have a wedding, and the movie ends.